All
Awesome.
right. So, little intro on today. Thanks for everybody for joining in here. If you've been attending the last couple series we did, I think we're learning. We're making some progress. We're kind of getting some more info about really how to participate in the channel and show up to these events. And I've learned a lot of other tidbits along the ways, aside from just learning how the channel works generally and how to attend events. So I'm really excited to have Amiee Keenan, who's the founder and chief marketing officer of the ISV Society. ISV Society, if you haven't heard of it, is producing a lot of great content. Specifically, I'm sort of a podcast nerd at heart, so I love to have that podcast to throw on when I'm doing things. Um, so yeah, Amiee, thanks for joining me. I greatly
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having me, Kevin. I'm excited about our chat today.
Yeah. So, little info on ISV Society. I know the sort of goal of your guys' company at all is just help people collaborate, educate, and generate leads, and try to come up with different joint marketing initiatives that maybe ISVs can find together, and
hmm
probably mostly ISVs and partners can sort of work together on. Right. I think that's sort of the shtick that you have. I don't know if you want to add any more details to that than I went through.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, basically I help ISVs creating joint marketing initiatives
Mhm.
and the power of the community and being a member and just being able to collaborate and brainstorm and work together. I feel like obviously the power of the community and the power of working together, you can really create great things, basically.
Yeah, and like I said, I've really enjoyed the content that you put out. It's been super
Well,
helpful
thank
for
you.
me. So you do have a couple fans out there. I think we talked earlier how this industry is really funny and that like, if we were to start a regular podcast, it'd be like I need 10,000 monthly listeners and in
Yes.
this world that's just like a totally unrealistic expectation. So you've got a couple out there at least. I know of myself and a couple others. So you've got some listeners out there, which is good. And I could just go all the way in on the last one because the last one that you did, the like 18 event best practices, that's
hmm
clearly right in the wheelhouse here today. So I kind of picked out some points on that, and we can go into some more detail on the topics there because it was a great overview. It's a great list, but it got me thinking about some other things. So I definitely
Sure.
wanted to talk about that. But I'll push that a little bit aside here so we can kind of start more generally, I suppose. Um, so I guess you've been doing ISV Society. You founded the ISV Society. What was it? 2 years ago now.
Almost 2 years.
So what led to that decision, and how's that been going for you generally thus far? What have you learned in the past 2 years of
Oh,
working with ISVs?
I've learned a ton. So basically, why I started this was obviously, 2 years ago when COVID hit and in
Mhm.
2020 when COVID hit, we as ISPs relied heavily on in-person events. And so
Yep.
when those are taken away from you, you have to come up with things and be creative and think outside the box and hey, what am I going to do now
Hmm.
to fill that gap? And while virtual events did play a huge role, you still needed other initiatives and things to do. So that's when I reached out to love my since I've been in the channel since 1999. Not that I want to outdate myself. I've obviously have a lot of people in the channel that I know, so I reached out to them saying, "Hey, what can we do? How can we work together?" And that's when I started collaborating more with them, realizing the power and the value of being able to do these joint marketing initiatives and joint webinars and joint
Hmm.
blogs. And I thought to myself, "Well, hey, what if there was actually a community and a membership where one person just helped you do all
Hmm.
that and you don't have to worry?" So I help collaborate with get all the content, get the images, get the everything together to just put everything together for them to just promote it. And that's all they have to do, show up, present and promote it and
Hmm.
then get the leads from it.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting. I didn't really put the timing together, but obviously that makes a lot of sense that it was the virtual conference world, which is interesting because I didn't really attend the in-person conferences pre-COVID,
okay.
so it just seemed
It didn't affect you.
yeah, it didn't affect me. Well, it didn't affect me. I realized it should have. The whole like impetus behind starting this is going to Summit this past October and chatting with people in person and like having these more sorts of like casual conversations and
Mhm.
realizing that's like way more valuable than any of like the webinars I had attended in like all the like formal content that I'd been like trying to figure out what's going on in the channel for years, like on the sidelines, just investigating. And like, a half hour conversation with somebody while you're having lunch was like the most informative thing. And that's why, trying to bring that idea to the virtual space is sort of the idea behind this, is like keep having those conversations, make it, you know, hopefully informative, but more importantly, you never know what's going to come out of when you actually just like legit talk to somebody. If you don't have
Right.
like bullet points ahead of time, it's hard to predict exactly where things are going to go. And sometimes those are the most important conversations. So that's kind of what I'm trying to bring to
Exactly.
it here. So with the great return of conferences over the past couple of years,
Hmm.
I feel like you've probably been to a ton over the past 6 months or so, and with directions coming up. Um,
Hmm.
so have you been to directions before? What's like your
I have.
conference history? What are your main must go to events, and how long you been going to them? It's probably about since you started, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, since 1999. So, a little backstory. Obviously, those of you who know me or know about Great Plains, back in the day, it was
Mm-hmm.
called Great Plains before Microsoft took it over. So that was my wheelhouse back then. And when it was just Great Plains, there were a ton of events that we had throughout the year, and
Mm-hmm.
most of them were in Fargo, North Dakota, believe it or not.
Woohoo!
So I've been there way too many times,
Can you
more
ever go to
than I
Fargo
want to
too many
count.
times? Is that possible? I don't know. It's always
Oh
got
my
something new,
goodness.
right?
Yeah. They had tech conferences. They had a business building conference. They had their annual customer conference, which was always in Orlando at the time at the Swan and Dolphin Hotel. And then they had their partner conference, which was called Stampede.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically right out of college is when I got immersed into the conference world. So I
Well,
started right out the gate.
I relate to this. So I said I hadn't been to conferences. That's not entirely true. In 2010, it must have been when I was like basically still an intern here. I went down to Convergence, and it was definitely a whirlwind. I'm not sure I took a whole lot away from it, but it was a thing to go to at the time.
It
We
was.
didn't really know what we were doing then, and I certainly didn't know what I was doing then. So but it was fun to be 23 at those conferences and hanging out with all the people that had been around. It was quite an experience for sure.
You definitely learn a lot, and it's definitely changed a tons.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that. So with the return of
Yes.
many of these conferences, what's still different? What's still different about them that compared to the golden era, if you will? I don't know if you want to call it that, if that sounds terrible, but
I feel like so back in the day, and I don't see it as much now, which is a good thing. And I don't even know if I like to bring this up, but back in the day, there used to be what people would hire booth babes, believe it or not, that would
mm-hmm.
come to their booth and hang out there.
Ugh,
Yeah, and
that's a different
I
era.
don't I
Yeah.
haven't seen it in the last couple of years. I hope I never see it again. But yes, that used to be a thing, and I used to get emails to be able to pick one out if I wanted to, like just a website where you could just pick a person out to come stand in your booth all day.
That's wild. Yeah, I didn't know that was actually a thing. I mean, I could see it even.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, glad that era has come to an end. So specifically with directions, directions is back for 2 years now, I think, at this point. Did you go to the last one? Was it? Well, how
I
was the
did. I did go to
triumphant
the last
return?
one. Yes, it was really great. So, why I love directions is because, I do love the bigger conferences, but the smaller ones are so nice too because you
Mm-hmm.
really get to network and have great conversations. You don't feel you're rushed. You have the time to walk around and visit people and talk to all the ISVs and the partners. And again, it's just a partner focused event. So you can really strategize on great ways to leverage that time and meet with partners and ISVs and not feel rushed or feel like it is only 3 days, but you don't have to like cram in a ton in that 3 days. You can space it out and give yourself time and give them time for
Yep.
everybody just to work together and meet and find that time to collaborate because that's so important. And I feel like that conference gives you that time and space to do that.
It's definitely been the recurring theme of what I've heard about directions is it's the great network event as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to that's something that John talked about a ton is just like when you remove customers, the whole dynamic changes, right?
Right.
Everybody, the only thing anybody's focused on at well, not the only thing, but a huge portion of what people are going to be focused on if there's customers there is
Of course.
grabbing those
Other
customer
customers.
leads, bringing them in,
Yes.
getting those numbers pumped up, which is one of the reasons that like I also wanted to talk to a bunch of people about directions specifically is a lot of the same like metrics that you would walk into a normal, like they say normal, a different type of conference where there are customers present, like the metrics that you want to walk away with are obvious, right? You want to
Mm-hmm.
get those customer contacts, you want to you know, boost those numbers, get that mail list built up. But like it's a little softer at directions. Like what do you walk away from a event like directions and like say, okay, that was a successful one? Do you walk in with like formal metrics? And watching, I'm gonna get into the 18 things an ISV should do because I can't avoid it. But like, you know, one of the things is what are your goals that you're setting to at this conference? And I think directions is a little different in that sense. Like what should those goals be? How should you approach that?
Right. So I think from an ISV's perspective, the goal would be obviously your session. You have a session, so make it
Hmm.
educational, informational if you do have one.
Hmm.
How are you going to drive traffic to that session? Are you sending out emails, doing social posts? Are you actually calling all the partners? Because obviously you've built up relationships with partners over the years and you
Yep.
have those relationships already established. So find out if they're going, how you can spend some time with them there, grab lunch, grab coffee, like make it very personal and just continue building that relationship. If it's new partners, then obviously you want to start building that relationship from the beginning and giving them a call, not
Yep.
just sending out an email, and just trying to understand why they're going to be there. What are their goals? And obviously you have goals, but they have goals too. So really
Hmm.
make it a um, back and forth type of relationship versus one-sided, which I think is important. From my standpoint, it was kind of like obviously my goal is to have as many conversations as ISVs as I can about the ISV
Hmm.
society. So,
I guess
I'm
your
looking at
customers are there, so it's a little
yeah,
different for you,
exactly.
right?
My customers are a little different. Um, but from my perspective, I'm actually, looking to see who's sponsoring, which ISP Society members are going to be there that I
Hmm.
can, keep building that relationship with, maybe grab a drink or grab lunch or dinner or
Yep.
breakfast with them, and then see who I can leverage for just scheduling quick time and a quick meeting. It's funny, I have a conversation so you never know who you're going to meet, obviously, or when you're going to meet, and you really have to take advantage of all the opportunities
You
to
can
do
talk about
that.
Harry
So,
Potter ride right now.
yeah. Oh, yes.
You
Love the
three
Harry
in a
Potter
row.
ride.
By the
But
way, of these podcasts, three in a row. Harry Potter ride. Something happened there last year. I don't
Hagrid,
know what it
but
was.
my thing was, so obviously there was a bus going to Universal, right? So I get on the
Yep.
bus and I just go sit next to somebody because
Right.
that's what you do. You don't you I really want to encourage people just to sit next to people you don't know versus your
Yep.
team, because you talk to your team all the time. Just go and sit next to somebody because you never know who you're going to speak to. So I got on the bus. I sat next to this wonderful person named Megan from Commerce Build. We
Hmm.
started chatting and we asked each other what we did. I talked a little bit about me. I talked about the ISV Society. Lo and behold, she loved the concept
Hmm.
and ended up signing up. So if I didn't sit next to her on
Right.
that bus and have a conversation, I would have never probably reached out to her or talked to her or had her sign up as a member.
That's so funny. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was the best networking event of the whole time last year. So I wonder, John wouldn't divulge all the details of what their secrets they had planned
Mm.
for this upcoming one, but I'm sure there will be something similar going on. It's, and again, that's the thing that like has blown my mind about this whole process is it truly is these chance encounters and like
Mm-hmm.
general friendliness that seem to be the most important part of all of this. And it's like, I don't know. And I've been reading about stuff like this on LinkedIn generally, which has really resonated with me. And it's like, stop pretending to be like this marketing person or like this, like what you think is like a businessy marketing type person and just be yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody likes that like fake marketing type person. And I remember like going to original convergence and when you're young you like don't fit in. You assume you don't fit into like this crowd or whatever, right? So it was just like putting on like this fake professional persona the whole time and it was just exhausting and like nobody likes that person anyway. So what's the point of doing it? And like I don't know, that's been like the realization. It's like, oh, you can just like actually completely be yourself, and that's what people wanted anyway at these sorts of events. It's like
Right.
breaks down this barrier of like, oh, this is a professional event, you should do, I don't know, like wear certain clothes or like act a certain way. And that's like, it doesn't seem necessary. Like you're not going to make actual connections that way. You like might be able to talk to a customer or two that way, but even that's going to be sort of a meh encounter versus authentically connecting with somebody
Right.
and like having something to being like, oh yeah, and by the way, I think I can help you on this one issue or like one thing. And that's just like way more important. So that's my little side on that I've realized lately. And I don't know, I think bringing that
I
to a
totally
conference,
agree. I feel like you go in with a salesy attitude or a marketing attitude, you're not going to get what you want in the long run.
everybody loses. Like the
Mm-hmm.
customer loses, the people you're trying to network lose, and you lose because you're going to get exhausted and not make any real connections. So it just doesn't.
Right.
I don't know. That's one of the big things that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Is just it makes the whole experience more enjoyable for everybody if everybody's just like trying to be authentic to themselves and genuine in their desires to help out.
And this is a great conference to do that. Like, just
Yeah,
be yourself, meet with people, get, start those relationships.
hang out with the partners. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the other things John mentioned that I think bears repeating is once you walk through the door, like we're all not competitors anymore. And I think that's probably something that you have to deal with a lot and think
Yes.
about a lot in what you're doing is, working with different ISVs that are going to compete on some level, but
Mm-hmm.
is that really that important? Is there a way around that? What's your thinking on that generally? Is there like, has your thinking evolved on that? Like, what is a competitor in the ISV space, or like what is?
It has.
Mhm.
So I know a lot of ISVs don't like working with their competitors or doing joint marketing initiatives with them, whereas I embrace that because
Mhm.
I feel like there's even more power to it. I mean, there are going to be some ISVs that aren't going to work together, and that's fine.
Yep.
And I do have quite a few that are kind of competing.
Mhm.
And I let them decide if they're going to want to do a competing webinar or a comparison webinar, but those webinars are very powerful because they are hearing from each of these ISVs differently, and we're coming at it with different angles. And
Mhm.
yes, you both have a great product, and yes, you probably don't do the exact same thing.
Mhm.
And some customers or partners are going to work with one versus the other for certain reasons. So why
Mhm.
not educate them in a nice formal way like that? Giving them the information of how you guys are truly different so that
Mhm.
customers and partners can get educated from both of you, hear from both of you, hear both of your perspectives in a great non-judgmental way
Mhm.
versus them having to dig for this information on their own. You're giving it to them.
That's true. It allows them to select the ideal customers
Right.
for you, right?
Because, say, I mean, I'm not going to give an example, but just um, for example's sake, say you both do AP automation, which we all know there's a ton of AP automation companies out there.
There's 2 or 3 of those companies out there. Yeah.
Which I feel like if we just had an AP automation day, that would be amazing, and just had every
Well.
AP automation company come out and do 20 to 30 minutes, just
Mhm.
chat about what their top things are, or how
Mhm.
they're different, or how they stand out, or how
Yep.
they can help. And just let these people, partners and customers, hear their perspective from everybody and just say, hey, well, I know this person is a match and this probably could meet my needs, but not this one. So
Yeah.
I'd rather it be more, I think it's just more powerful that way versus us trying to compete with them, going on, going on their websites, finding out what they do, how are
Mhm.
we different, trying to create your own document on how you're different. And it might be true, it might not be true. Who knows? Because you
Yeah.
might have just pulled stuff off their website and not really knowing,
Yeah.
you know? So I feel like and then once you do this joint initiative, all the other content that you can create from it, like a white paper, like a
Mhm.
comparison chart, like an ebook, like a tips and tricks
Mhm.
document. Like, there's just tons of things that you can create just from doing this joint initiative. And like I said, I let them decide if they want to do it, but I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. It's something I haven't really pursued, but at the end of the day, it's content that partners would want to consume, right?
Hmm.
And that's the holy grail of content production and marketing
Yes.
is can you produce something somebody actually cares about that like actually provides a bit of value? And I think that is a situation where you can do it. So that's really interesting to me. And
And having me do it from like an outside perspective,
true.
like I'm the person, I'm the host, so to speak. You're all on an evil, loving playing field. So
Hmm.
here, it's like we're just all talking, we're just all having a conversation. And I think it's just powerful to do it that way.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that,
Hmm.
and I think not to throw shade on the AP automation space,
No,
but
no, me neither. I love all
well,
my
no, I
AP
mean I will,
automation
but
people that
I
I
don't
work
think
with.
everybody has a very clear understanding of how they fit into
Right.
particular customer segments. I really
Hmm.
don't. I mean, some of them do. Not obviously, there's a gradient here, but
Right.
there's a lot of people that seem to think that you just build like one platform and it's going to be the catch-all solution for everybody in a certain market segment, and that doesn't really seem to be the
Right.
case. And you know, the people
Some of
funding
them
those.
focus on certain industries, some
Yeah.
of them don't. Some of them have specific functionality for those certain industries, some of them don't.
Yep.
So, you just don't know unless you actually get on and have a conversation.
Yeah, it's just interesting, and I definitely, again, I won't name any individual companies, but there are definitely some people at Summit that come in with the AP automation banner, and like the messaging is like so vague that it's just like I feel like the partners don't even know how to approach that, and clearly they've got a bit more budget than we have for those sorts of things, so I don't want to
Mhm.
make any enemies, but um, it it's interesting, and I think that is a potential for ISVs, especially on the smaller size, to like really stand out and differentiate themselves and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, we actually know what we serve." I love it when a partner reaches out and they bring me something, and I go, that's not a good fit," and they're like, "What?" I'm like,
Right.
"It's not exactly right. Don't waste your time on that one." So,
I feel like you'll get more qualified people after
yep,
them hearing the
that you're
hearing the
willing to say
perspective,
no.
the
You're
comparison.
willing.
You're gonna get people that say, "Actually, hey, I need you, not the other people. So yeah, I'm gonna
Hmm.
reach out to them, not them, because I know I need you and not them."
Hmm.
So I feel like you could get more qualified leads or opportunities that way because they actually know the differences now and they can make that informed decision to just say, "Yes, this is more of a fit for me than the other one because it does this."
Yep. And it instills trust, which is always a good thing to be doing
Mhm.
if you possibly can.
Exactly.
So back directions specifically.
We got totally off on a tangent.
Yeah, that's fine. Uh, it happens. So do you have any sessions at directions? Are you doing anything specifically, or
I'm
maybe
supposedly doing a session, but I
can't announce
can't
yet?
say anything yet.
Okay, totally fair. Just thought I'd let you plug it if you were allowed to do it. I did see.
I wish I knew what it was, but I don't know yet.
Okay, totally fair. Understood. Um, so before I guess what I was hoping to do is like take the last podcast you did and like kind of reframe it specifically for directions, because it was a great list of things that you should do before every conference, which definitely makes
Mhm.
sense. Obviously the number one thing on that is just having a plan is better than having no plan.
Right.
And you kind of talked about the different details of what will go into that plan. There's like a lot of the standard sort of stuff. um, what I'm interested in is how to like, so you gotta, part of the plan is to like build a marketing campaign and like do all the standard sort of stuff, and send out the drip marketing and get your lists and try to get your customers that are going to be there, schedule meetings. I get all that. I'm curious how this all like blends in with the new like LinkedIn style social selling, if you have any specific strategies on how you handle that, or are you just scrolling through the feed and looking for people that have things that are interesting and talking to them? Are you more organized than that with like your like, I don't know if I want to call it like a comment strategy. That seems like a weird way to put it, but you know what I mean, right? Where you're just
Yeah,
like
I do know what you
engaging.
mean.
How are
Yeah.
you? How do you approach that? Maybe specifically for directions. Maybe just you can be more general, but how are you approaching that aspect on LinkedIn at this point?
So for LinkedIn, basically what I do, and then for any conference that is again, I like to see who's sponsoring it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll look at all of the ISVs that are sponsoring, and I will actually go out on LinkedIn to their company page. I will follow them. I'll just look them
Mm-hmm.
up, see what they do, see if I know nobody. Then I'll go to the people and see if I know nobody that works there. I'll connect
Mm-hmm.
with them. If I'm not connected with them, I'll just say and reach out to them if I do know if they're going to be there. If I have a connection with them already, I'll actually send them a message. Hey, I see you're sponsoring directions.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be there? Someone from your team going to be there? I would love to chat. So I'll start that conversation right then and there from LinkedIn. So that's how I leverage it. And then I'll obviously go out on their pages and comment. If I don't hear from them, I'll go and start commenting on
Mm-hmm.
their page, their content, and their posts, just to try and get them to see me, and eventually,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, they'll reach out. The rule of thumb for LinkedIn is basically 5 comments a day
Mm-hmm.
and also get your comments and
Okay.
your posts seen better once you start engaging more. So engaging is way more effective on LinkedIn versus posting,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're not posting with a purpose.
Yeah. Right. Just random.
So I always try to post with a purpose,
Yep.
something educational, informational, something maybe just about me or my granddaughter. I
Yep.
usually get a lot of traction with that when she's in my posts, or uh, So I try to make, humanize things, right?
Yep.
We're all humans, right? So if I have a dog, sometimes my dog will be in it. Sometimes it will be her. Sometimes it will just be, again, educational, informational, business type content. So I try to trickle that in throughout the month and not make
Hmm.
it all the same thing. Obviously, my podcast episodes, any joint marketing initiatives I'm
Hmm.
doing, any blogs that I've written, any initiatives I've got coming up, or obviously member stats. I like to share some of the member stats, and
Hmm.
if I have any new members that sign up. So I do that educational and informational piece as well about the ISV society, but I try to trickle in all different kinds of content because I think that's important. And then, yeah, so basically trying to engage with people on LinkedIn is the best strategy for me,
Hmm.
and building those relationships, commenting on their posts, making engaging messages, not just, blanket stuff.
Yeah, I think that's all really good. The interesting thing of that I didn't fully realize until I started going back to these events is LinkedIn is kind of real in that you can connect with people on it, and they then like that can turn into like somebody that you actually meet at a conference, which is just like
Hmm.
it's obvious to me, but it kind of seemed like a made up place that was just like like Twitter's not real. There's no real humans on Twitter, but like LinkedIn seems kind of like a real place where you can connect with people. And but I think why I thought it was fake for a long time is I was doing it wrong in that I was being professional guy as opposed to real person. And like nobody wants to connect with professional guy. That guy's boring. That guy doesn't like you don't want to connect with him. So it's like, and I say this to like my marketing and sales team, and it's hard to say it without sounding a little crazy, but like you have to prove you're a human on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Like you have to prove that you have interests outside of whatever you're selling. You have to have a life outside of it. And like that goes so far. Like that sort of connection online feels like, yeah, you might not get a sale out of it, but you'll have a conversation when you actually are at a position at a conference to
Right.
talk to somebody, and who knows what'll come from that. And it's like
Exactly.
always softer.
And LinkedIn used to be way more professional a few years ago, like
Yeah, I
that.
think
You wouldn't
true.
see this as much. Definitely wouldn't see this as much before COVID. Like I think COVID kind of broke that
True.
trend where it had to be business and professional all the time, which is nice because I feel like it's a great platform. It's one of my favorite social platforms,
Yeah.
and the content is really good. Everybody shares really great content, like not to nix Facebook and Instagram and all that, but there's a ton of stuff out there. Like it's
Oh,
just very overwhelming and can just consume you and suck you in, and you're just off on a tangent watching doggy videos all day.
yeah.
So LinkedIn is
Ex-
totally different, where you're actually getting that educational, informational, making connections, more of a, I want to say, business building but personal building platform.
Yeah, and I think it's closer to like what the business world actually is, right? Like
Hmm.
the fake business world where like everybody's shaking hands and wearing suits, like that never really existed. I don't think it's, but I don't know. I guess you're from GP world, so you're from friendly Midwest world, where I'm sure everybody wasn't like that. From
It
in
was
like
polos and khakis.
yeah, and drinking Lagunitas beer and hanging out and doing all the Midwest things. I'm sure that was one of the other things I wanted to mention or ask you about. Is you've obviously started working in the Acumatica space and Sage space. Um, are those communities as different as it appears? Like, what are the differences? Is like Dynamics community truly a different space, and like it's roots of a couple different Midwest accounting platforms getting rolled into what Microsoft has today? I feel like it still has some of that roots to it. So like,
It
is
does.
Intact and everything else, like, is it a different community, or how is it different? I suppose I'm sure it's a little
I
different.
mean, it's a little bit different, but not so much. At least for the Acumatica's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it's more. I would feel like Acumatica is more like the way GP used to be before Microsoft took it over.
Mm-hmm.
And what's nice about Acumatica is that a lot of the Microsoft partners are also selling Acumatica, so there's a lot
Yep.
of overlap. And even in Sage, there's a lot of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And Sage was really before Sage Intact, before it became Sage Intact. I feel like when it was just Sage, it was like Microsoft and GP days, and it was just
Yep.
focus, and partners all knew each other, and everybody was such a tight knit community. So now you have a lot of that overlap and crossover between all the ERPs,
Which is
because some of
interesting.
them are saying, "Hey, I'm not going to sell this cloud, but I'm going to sell this cloud."
Yeah.
So now, they have to say, "Okay, basically, I've sold this ERP for so many years, and now I got to figure out what cloud platform I'm going to sell and which is the
Yeah.
best one based on that."
Yeah, Acumatica definitely has a lot of old GP people that
Hmm.
migrated there instead. I've heard that story several times, which is interesting to me. I haven't gone very far down it yet, other than I know several people that have gone from GP that route as opposed to BC, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yep.
Um, so kind of while we're on the like social selling side of things, what's another like interesting thing that you mentioned in like the best practices is like you should be sending like the most custom, most specific messages possible as your follow-ups, which I certainly agree with. The sort of larger, like, I don't know if it's a question, but like the larger idea in this is like the great merge of what is marketing and what is sales.
Hmm.
And it's like marketing is almost sales now in so many
Yes.
ways. I'm sort of the opinion at this point that like we do marketing activities, like general marketing, but I'm not sure. I feel like almost all of it should be like one-to-one custom at this point. Like if you're not going to take the time to customize something that you're sending out or something that you're like talking to somebody about, it sort of feels like our filters for spam and like marketing are up
Hmm.
so high nowadays that I'm not sure anything gets through anymore that's not custom. But maybe I'm just more cynical than most and like more aggressively delete LinkedIn messages from people I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts on that are. If we're gonna, are we gonna get all the way where it's just like the same? Is marketing and sales gonna become
I
the same thing, or is there
It's going to
still a
be close
purpose?
someday. It's definitely going to be close, because so my take on this is like yeah, a lot of people think email is dead, or,
Mm-hmm.
again, so many people get so many emails, and that is true. But if you think about it, that's your contact list, right?
Yeah.
If social media went away,
Mm-hmm.
or it was shut down for a day, you still have your contact list, and that's
Mm-hmm.
your bread and butter. That's what's going to ultimately
Yeah.
change those leads, bring them down the funnel to opportunities, and so forth. So that's why I think we have to spend a lot of time on segmenting our
Mm-hmm.
lists, especially from events, making sure we're taking notes when these customers are coming to talk to you, or
Mm-hmm.
partners are coming to talk to you. Really write down what your conversations were, so that way
Yeah.
you know what you talked to them about, what you need to follow up with them on. So they're not getting this blanket email, "Hey, thanks for stopping by our booth. Here's more information about blah blah blah."
Yeah.
That's white noise to them.
It is. Yeah.
And yes, that will get deleted unless they seriously need whatever you're selling. Um, so that's why I think it's so important to segment out those lists. You will have obviously the ones that get those generic emails because
Mm-hmm.
you don't know, you didn't talk to them, you just scanned them, or they were in the list that you got.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to at least segment them out. What I see a lot of is like you get the list, and maybe there's customers on that list, partners on that list, and ISVs. Well, obviously
Mm-hmm.
you want to pull out and separate all three of those lists, so you have three lists right there.
Yeah.
And I
Definitely.
still get tons of emails after an event when
The
somebody gets
wrong.
a list. So I don't know why you're sending me. I mean,
Yeah.
thank you for sending me an email, but I maybe you're just sending it to me to let me know, and I can reach out to you, which is great. But really think about segmenting those lists. And again, the humanizing, we're
Yep.
trying to humanize emails is never going away.
No.
You just have to get better at it.
That's
That's the ultimate goal.
that's a good way to think about it. I think a important thing that you mentioned in that is like don't put all your eggs in the social media basket.
Hmm.
Like LinkedIn is all the way, like LinkedIn seems so hot right now, right? But they could always just like tweak a preference or like change how the algorithm works or change what you're allowed to
Which they
do,
do.
which they do. And it might be game over for you. Like whatever
Yeah.
strategy you had built could go away. As like related, I'm super cognizant of this. Back like years ago, I was like playing in a band, and the like idea at the time was you got to build up like your Facebook page. That was like the way to become successful. So we like, banging the drum and like getting as many people, and we got like all these followers. And then Facebook just like changed how pages worked, and we couldn't get to any of them again. And it's just like, well,
See?
okay, I guess that idea is over now. Like we should have been collecting emails this whole time because we would
Hmm.
have been able to still contact them, right?
Yep.
It's like emails don't go away
Exactly.
with one executive's decision to change how like posts
Unless you
work
delete your
or
whole
something.
email list by accident.
Yeah. So that's been something I've
Um,
definitely been cognizant of in LinkedIn world is like, okay, how do we diversify our strategy too? Because we can't we can't go all in on something that we don't control. Like you
right.
can't do that. So it isn't I haven't thought about that as like using the email as just like a one-to-one, like I don't know, super custom, try to get through the great filter. And people do get through my filter occasionally. If they can catch
Mm.
me on like the right day with the exact right message that's like, still a cold contact. I think you can still get through, but it's
Yes.
really tough.
I mean, my list is just ISVs, obviously, and
Mhm.
I email them once a month, if that, maybe twice a month. And
Mhm.
yeah, I get really good open rates, really good click rates, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to bring educational, informational content and talking to them as a person versus
Yeah.
as a company or a business or a product I'm selling. And they people want to hear that side of you. Yes, you want to. I mean, the ultimate goal is yes, you want to sell something, but you got to take baby steps to get there.
Yeah. Got to build that trust. So, I guess final thing is any other random directions tips that you have for me or anybody else who's never been there. Gotten some good tips along the way, but you got anything specific that might not be in a bullet point or somewhere else I might hear it?
If you love Florida and Orlando, take some extra days to enjoy it and get some vacation time in there. It is a beautiful resort and it has water slides and everything. So you
Ooh.
could definitely take some downtime and have some fun before or after the event. Um, and then, I really love directions because you're not stuck at a kiosk all day.
Mm-hmm.
You just have the kiosk. They have certain hours, which is so nice the way they have it all broken up. So really take the time to during those breaks, during that downtime when you might
Mm-hmm.
not be doing anything, to mingle with people, to network, to sit at a table, to schedule those meetings, to not, go back to your room and work, so to speak, or just kind
Yeah.
of like, go back and
Fake
do
work.
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it is, but go back and go actually immerse yourself in the whole experience and just meet as many people as you can. Maybe you do a tally. Hey, I have to meet 30 people in these 3 days.
That's
How am
that's a
I going
good
to do
goal.
that?
Yeah, that's a good way to
Yeah.
frame it. Like, and it doesn't have to be anything, right? It's just
Right.
a quick chat,
Just
maybe.
make it fun.
Yep. Okay. Anything else you wanna plug or anything that you wanna close with? That's basically all I was hoping to get through
Oh,
here today.
yeah, no, this has been a great conversation, Kevin. Thank you so much for letting me be on to chat with you. I'm really glad that you did, and I love actually, like you said, we learn from people when we talk to people and have these conversations, and that's where the magic happens, and that's how we learn and grow and meet new people and get our names out there. And so, thank you.
Agree to agree, and I'll plug you if you won't. Definitely check out the ISV Society podcast. It's really good. It's like everywhere. It's on Spotify, wherever.
Yes,
If
thank you.
and they're
Yep.
short and easy to consume. So stop listening
And
to
I'm always
whatever
looking for
weird.
new people to interview. So if anybody has something they want to share or anything they think that people would love to hear, feel free to reach out to me. I'm being a guest as well. And of course, I can also chat with you about being a member too.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much, Amy. Thanks everybody,
Thanks,
and
Kevin. Thanks, everyone.
we'll talk soon.
Bye.